Whoa.
All right, we're gonna have to be very cozy here.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Let's get cozy, Bob.
It's like it's Cuso Grande again.
Yeah. Did we do golf hosts for that? We did. I feel like we did it for one.
I didn't, because I never hosted with you on it, I don't think.
I thought we did. Is that
No,
what-
we did do the one.
We
yeah.
co-mic'd
Yeah,
one
we co-mic'd
game.
one game.
We hosted Cuso Grande.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah,
We'll
it
do that
was.
again.
They didn't have me do it this year.
Yeah, we got 4
Well, I think
minutes still.
Rosentia was there.
Rosentia was there, yeah. Link was going to be like, oh, we're doing the coconut tournament, can you cast it? And I'm like, great. And then he's like, yeah, but we have no mics, no, it's like you're not actually
So you're
recording
standing
it.
there and
So,
you're
well, you're sitting there, and
That's cool though. I like
Yeah.
that.
so maybe next year.
That's how they used to do shoutcasting in 1887.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Back in ye old esports.
When the esports were just sports.
Yeah.
They were M sports, mechanical sports.
The days when there was no electronics in sports.
In the historical era of League of Legends.
Yeah.
When it took place.
When they actually attacked each other.
Yeah. That's
Spartacus got mid.
right. Oh. Okay. Yeah. You gotta. It's not omnidirectional.
Yeah, no, it's a
Yeah.
good mic. Yeah.
Hi. Welcome. Come on in.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
I just like greeting people when they come in the door.
I know.
That's good, right?
That's good.
This is my second panel ever.
There you go. Well, that's good. Yeah.
You're doing very well.
I'm crushing.
I don't know anybody who'd be upset
Yeah.
with you doing it.
No.
So I think it's a good idea.
It's lovely to see. Thank you for coming.
I wanted to do that first, and I was like, come to our panel, but then I chickened out.
You chicken
Yo,
out.
I chickened out.
I just ate chicken.
Learn how to stream retro games.
Do you want to stream
wanna
retro?
learn how to stream
There's
retro
like a
games?
whole room of retro computers over there.
Do you want? How many HDMI cables do you have?
Do you have one long enough for us?
Would you like to play Friday the 13th for the NES on the internet for people to watch?
What? Maybe. Can I play Titanic?
You can always play
Oh.
Titanic. I love Titanic. That game's terrible.
That was one of the Kuso games I got to do. It was amazing.
We'll wait 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
2 more minutes.
2 more minutes.
Thank you all for being here.
We'll get
Yeah.
to 8:30 on the dot.
Yeah.
8:28. My birthday. 8:28.
8:28. Oh, I'll have to remember that.
August 28th.
Obviously, you're gonna do anything fun?
Yeah, that's gonna be my last stream before I go to PAX West.
Oh,
So I'll
awesome.
probably just do our normal nonsense that we always do.
The normal
Where I just sit there and I'm like, all right, y'all do what you want.
Yeah.
Just hit me with whatever you want.
Do our usernames all also our Twitch channels? Does this count as like
Yeah.
advertising?
Could be.
Sick.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
There is self-promotion here.
Oh. You don't have to tell me twice.
We're actually allowed to promote ourselves here.
And then I rip my shirt off and it's got merch. And
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's my chest.
I don't want to buy that.
And that's not what you told me last night.
Wait a minute. How did you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We're doubling your salary.
It's okay.
0 times 2 is still 0.
Womp womp.
Fearless leader, you're in charge.
Oh, me? Oh, do I have to start the conversation?
Whenever you're
okay.
the one.
Yeah, yeah.
You're the
Oh,
one.
yeah. Oh, it's 8:30. All right.
We
I got the
defer to
power.
you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Yeah, we might as well get started. It's 8:30. Hi. It's
Hello.
so nice to see you all here. Thanks so much for coming to our panel. How to stream retro games. You know, whether that's on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, wherever you live online, we want to share with you the ability so that you can go out in the world and share the joy of retro. And with me, I have some very incredible, wonderful panelists sharing the stage with me today. And I'm going to go down the line, starting with AnEternalEnigma, and I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell people what you do on Twitch.
I am AnEternalEnigma. I do a lot of everything on Twitch. I've been streaming since it was not even called Twitch. It was Justin TV when I started. And a lot of the games that I used to play We're kind of like in that middle ground from retro, which are now very retro. And I've done a lot of old Silent Hill, a lot of old Resident Evil horror games, just kind of venture on out. And I'm all over the place. But where I got my start was Silent Hill and all those wonderful things. And that's just what I do.
I love it. I love it.
My name is Bobby Blackwolf. I've been a longtime video game podcaster, 19 years as of this coming Wednesday. Episode 900 is Sunday night, and I've lost count until I'm like, wait, it's episode 899 tonight. That means next week. I'm doing math in my head. But I've been doing an internet radio talk show live the whole since the beginning, back on Shoutcast and using IRC for chat. And got into streaming video games actually on Ustream.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
this was back
wow.
in the.
Remember Ustream?
Yeah, so
Turning into dust.
I know Ustream, and I streamed retro games then on Ustream at the time, which was 2009, 2010, as well as games that are now retro,
Yeah.
but were new then. And what was interesting about that is that was really the forefront of game streaming. I was on Ustream, and people are like, why would someone want to watch somebody else play video games on a Friday night when they could just be playing them themselves? And then I also had this idea of putting a camera on the person playing, and they're like, and why are you going to put something over the screen of the person's face who's playing? They thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of on the forefront of all that, but I've been doing the video game podcast since 2005, talking about the video game industry as an audio podcast, and now I do it on Twitch on Sunday nights at 8 o'clock. And I'm an Atlanta native, and this is my favorite convention. I'm on the Voice of Geeks Network, and we're a sponsor here. So we love this convention, and we hope you do too.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say that I invented streaming like Bobby did, but
None of us can. None of us can.
I'm Cartridge Blowers. Also, Carty B is what people like to call me because that's fun. I have been doing internet video game content, because that's what I'm going to call it, because I'm just rambling here, since 2010-ish on YouTube. But I really sort of hit my sort of oeuvre on Twitch in 2017. I've been streaming retro content pretty much the whole time, though. I do a little new stuff here and there, but my focus is mostly on Super Nintendo specifically. I do a series called SNES and XS, where I'm trying to beat every single Super Nintendo game released in North America, and I'm on game 412 right now. So I've got a lot, not too much. I'm a little over half now, a little over halfway done. There's 721. So I keep a spreadsheet. It's very, 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 very integral. I also speedrun Super Mario Brothers 3. I do a lot of randomizer content, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And yeah, I just like to go on the internet and do goofs. I was playing video games alone by myself, and I was like, why don't I talk to people while I'm doing this? That sounds fun. And so now I play video games by myself and talk to people while I'm doing it, which is kind of like playing video games with other people in the room. It's a lot of fun. And that's me.
Awesome.
Ash?
Yeah, thank you. Well, my name is AshSaidHi. I stream, hi. I stream mostly retro games on Twitch. Sometimes I do indie games with a retro vibe, like low poly pixel art. And I started broadcasting in March of 2019. And then the pandemic happened and all that life change or whatever. And then it sort of became my focus. You know, I was working in the corporate space for a while, and I didn't have a work-life balance. But I knew I always wanted to get into content creation, and so I was like, yo, let me start streaming retro games. And then I met like all these amazing people, you know, and it kind of just like changed my life, right? Just like put it on a whole new trajectory. And so now I do really cool like stuff like this and talk to people about video games and, you know, spread the joy of what we do, so that way we can maybe encourage you to do the same and share your experiences online somewhere. And yeah, it's really fun. So today we're here to talk to you about streaming retro games. And the reason why, there's a couple of reasons why this panel exists. First of all, I don't know if like you all have noticed, but like especially in like new indie games coming out and games being released, and just like content in general, people have a yearning for retro. Like they love seeing people experience maybe old TV shows or old movies and old games that they never, like, through a new lens, like people like me who never played Final Fantasy VI until like last year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, really bad, right? But then watching someone play something that they love, it kind of reinvigorates them for it. So there's like a real space, like a third space, how much our space has become online. And also, like, it can be technically difficult to stream retro games. So we want to share this information of all the things that we learned along the way to encourage you all to do it. So we're going to define retro. What does it mean first? Because that can be contentious, right? And then what type of retro content can you make? How do you broadcast retro games? Real hardware versus software, because there's a big difference. And some game choices to get you started. You know, like maybe some of us are biased. Maybe some of us like, puzzle games or, scary games, something like that. We'll see. But yeah. So to you, what does retro mean?
Oh, okay. Everyone's looking at me, and I got so
well,
scared.
whoever wants to take the question first,
What does it? Is it just because I'm an English teacher in my day job?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for
Define
it.
the words for me. So retro to me is anything you sort of like grew up with. Like that to me is what's. I know retro is kind of an ever-changing thing because we were just talking about this before the panel started. It's so strange that the Xbox 360 is kind of retro, right? Like I was playing that after college, really. And so to think that is retro is kind of wild. But people grew up with that. And that's near and dear to your heart. To me, retro is, but it's also a feel, right? Because you talked about the style. Like, I can look at Shovel Knight, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Shovel Knight's amazing. And it has that retro feel, but it's definitely not a retro game. Well, oh my God, 2012 right now,
Yeah.
so maybe it's getting there.
It's getting there. It's getting there.
And again, all of these sort of pixelish games that are out now, and everything, like, there's both a retro, this is by definition retro, and then the vibe, right? The vibe, I think, is really important too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So personally to me, anything as retro as when I was a kid. And so I turned to dust when they were like, we're going to have a retro game tournament. It's Halo and Guitar Hero, and I just turned to dust. But that's retro to a lot of people. What I think is probably a decent barometer is anything two console generations ago and earlier. And that way it kind of shifts over time. On my podcast network, the podcast after us, Orange Sound Radio, they do the classic game of the week every week. And the criteria there is 10 years old. And when they put in games that were like, that's already 10 years old, like it just seems like when we get older, time moves quicker. Mm-hmm. And so that's why there's that contentious of like, well, that's not retro. That came out last year in like 2011. We're like, do you remember when 2011 was? So yeah. I think, so in my heart, I say it's whatever when I was a kid. So 80s or 90s. But in my brain, it's two generations or earlier is kind of where I put the retro term.
I love that.
So for me, it's one of those things where it's like, is it a time frame? Or like you said, is it the vibe? I think it's a little bit of both. So, for example, I streamed Silent Hill Downpour when it came out on Twitch. Twitch had just turned into Twitch. That was 2012, 12 years ago now. You could make an argument that is a retro game. Yeah. It came out on the 360. It's been out for 12 years now. But I think for me, what defines retro is when it takes you back to a different generation. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm about to be 40. I'll turn 40 in August. I've been playing video games since I was 4. Chop a 0 off of that, and that's the age that I was when I first started playing games. It was 4. But I think anything retro, something that will take you back to a different generation or a different time in your life, I kind of feel like that hits the retro point for me as opposed, I've heard the 10-year thing like you've said, and I do kind of get with that. Usually in a console generations now tend to last, 6-7 years? Yeah. So I'd say, 12, 13, 14 years, probably a very good bet. But for me, personally, I think it's something that takes you back to a different time in your life. Maybe not like a super far back time in your life, but just a different time. Yeah. So that's kind of the spirit and the embodiment of retro to me, I would say.
I love that. that. I love that everybody kind of has like a different idea. It means something different to you. And you'll find that if you start creating content in this space, there's going to be a lot of people who feel that way. Like they'll be like, oh, well, I grew up with Commodore 64, so, you know, that's not retro to me. And then like, you know, the kid down the hall is going to be like, oh, the Wii, that's retro. And you're like, oh God, I remember when that came out, and that has been said to me before. But I think also what you'll encounter is people wanting to maybe sometimes argue, but definitely have the discussion, and it can be very, you know, animated. Like a lot of people are gonna have like a lot of passion behind it. So harness that. If you see that happening in like the spaces that you're in, you know, like that's a great way to engage with people and be like, well, what do you think is retro? Why do you think it's retro? Like what you know, like what did you grow up with? And that's a great way to connect with people. So.
And I kind of want to piggyback on this because I want to give like a specific example of something that I just thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Is a game Portal. Okay, so it was early 2010s. And I think a little bit of retro also is there a generation of people watching that didn't grow up with it? Because what happened with Portal, there was one person who's like, yeah, I finally decided to play the retro game Portal, and it just doesn't hold up. It just took every single internet meme from 2013 and smacked it in the game. And those of us who actually played it were like, no, 2013 internet memes came from Portal.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like when you watch old movies, you watch something like Casablanca, and you're like, oh, this is so derivative. No, Casablanca is where it all came from.
Right.
Everything derived from that.
Right.
And so like Portal, all the humor on the internet derived from Portal, but everybody looks at it now because they're like, oh, they said the cake is a lie. That was all over the internet, and they just took it all. So I would say retro is something where there is a generation today that didn't grow up with it. And that is something they go back to. Talking about the Xbox 360, there's a lot of people that are like, man, the Blades interface was really cool. And like, I think Xbox just launched a new theme that had the Blades interface to get that retro aesthetic from 2005, the original Xbox 360.
Wow.
Because people didn't grow up with it, so it is kind of cool and retro now.
It's new to
it's not-
them.
yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. I love that because that's that like it feels like a time that I'm yearning for, but I don't necessarily know why I'm yearning for it. It's called anemoia. It's like when you feel nostalgic for something even though you're not from that time. And it's like such a interesting thing that's going on in a lot of culture today when you see people talking about, you know, these kinds of things. So thank you for sharing that, Bobby. Also, Morrowind, one of my favorite games, just turned 21 or 22 years old.
Yeah.
And someone told me like, oh, you can play this in the retro category. And I was like, please be quiet. So yeah, so that's why, like, you know, you all say, I think it's so funny that you brought up Shovel Knight because that's why I put it in here. Is it retro? But some people might say like, yeah, you know, like because of the way it looks, it's retro. And I put that Silent Hill one in there for you.
There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, so is Silent Hill retro? First one?
I would say so, yeah. 1999.
PS1,
25
yeah.
years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, what kind of retro content can you make? Do you want to start off, Enigma, and say like, well, what's out there for people to make?
What is out there? Well, it depends on what you have access to. I think you're going to come up to that a little bit later on how to like set that up in a technical space. But really, I mean, the beauty of what we do is you can kind of make whatever you want. That may sound like kind of a wide cast net answer, but the world's your oyster, really. Whatever you have access to, anything, like I said, that takes you back to a time. And I think the beauty of creating things like this is that it's not just somebody is watching me enjoy. I can sort of open the door and let these people enjoy something with me. In terms of what you actually put on the screen, you can really put whatever you want on the screen. But in terms of actual, what I think of as retro content is not so much just displaying an old game on the screen. It's sort of like, to me, connecting with people that also may have those sorts of memories or feelings, and also sort of connecting to people who may not have those memories and explaining to them what it was all about when it was new at the time. So in terms of content for me, I look at it sort of as like the feeling and the experience as opposed to like a specific game, but it is whatever you want it to be. I'm sure they're going to have different answers. You're going to have a different answer. But for me, in terms of retro content, I think it's about connecting with people who have that connection and exposing that connection to people who may not have experienced it at the time. That's what it is for me.
I love that because you know what? It combats an idea that's constant in the retro space, which is gatekeeping. You know, how many times have you met somebody that said, "Oh, what do you mean you never played that game?" Or "You don't know enough about it, so what could you have to say about it?" And I love that idea of the connecting with people and making it about that shared experience versus like, "Oh, it has to be this specific thing."
And one of the things that I've learned in my career doing streaming full time, I didn't really say all that. Y'all were talking about your time frames. I've been streaming full time.
Yeah, that's not me.
Yeah. I've been streaming full time, been a Twitch partner since 2017. One of the things that I have learned, the big lesson that I've learned over that time is the content, the vague, well, not vague, but the abstract term of content is not the game you put on the screen. It's the feeling and the vibe that you create. And if you can push that across to other people, that's the real content for me. That's my content.
I love that
Yeah.
so much.
Yes. So my content, the way that I did retro streams, the main retro streams I actually did were old Sierra games, Sierra adventure games, because that was my jam, especially in the early 90s, and I actually still have a computer that runs DOS. It has a Roland MT32 hooked up to it. It has a Gravis ultrasound. And so I hooked that up. I don't use DOSBox. I actually use the actual computer. And it's the text parser era was really the era that I have a lot of feelings for. So the EGA era, we're talking like Space Quest 3.
King's Quest, yeah.
Well, King's Quest 4 and
Yeah.
Space Quest 3, the Leisure Suit Larry series, and Police Quest 2. That era was kind of like, that was the formative years. And what I like doing is, in terms of how I present it, it's most people didn't get to experience it. And so they don't understand why it was so great. Because a lot of times, and you talk about like just content on the screen, if we go to like Nintendo games, like Legend of Zelda, one thing I hear a lot is, you know, from people who say, back in my day, and by the way, never say back in my day. I don't like that. I didn't like it when my parents told me that back in their day, there was no such thing as a remote control. Their dad just hit them until they changed the channel. I didn't like that either. So don't say like, back in my day, we had one button and we liked it. No, welcome people in and tell them why this was big for you. Why did this evoke this to you? And also, you play Legend of Zelda and people are like, well, back in my day, they didn't tell you how to play. They just dropped you in. You had to figure out that you had to go in there and get the sword. No. Legend of Zelda had a 50-page manual that walked you through the first 3 dungeons.
Thank you.
Okay? It walked you through the first 3 dungeons. It said exactly where they were, here's the maps, and that was in the box. We just, if you rented it from Blockbuster, you didn't get that, and it's obviously not there. So people will load, you know, get a game, like play an arcade game or something, and they won't know how to play, but if you do, because you played it as a kid, you can also say, this is how you play it. This is how you can experience it on your own. And enjoy it a little bit more. And that's what I like bringing is like, hey, this is something you may not have experienced. Here's why it was neat for me, and here's how to get the most out of it.
To jump on that, that reminded me when you mentioned the instruction manuals. One of the things that I do whenever I play like the old Silent Hill games, whenever I do my deep dive lore playthroughs, the first thing I do is I grab that instruction manual and I read everything story related or anything gameplay related in that. Because there are people out there now, even adults in this era, who have never seen an instruction manual in a game or if they have, it's like a little one-page thing directing them to a website. Yeah. We used to actually get story stuff and gameplay stuff in those manuals. And in terms of what type of retro content can you make, for what I actually put out there on the screen, I read those manuals and people love it. It's great.
They do.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on everything that everyone has said so far. Talking about what Bobby's saying about sort of bringing like an expertise to the game. That kind of goes the opposite way too, because if you play it, they will come kind of thing. I remember very early starting on, I was like, I want to play one of my favorite RPGs, Star Ocean 2. And I'm like, let me play Star Ocean 2. And then someone came through who was like, I know every inch of this game. And I'm like, please, yeah, tell me all about it. I haven't played it since I was like 12. And then they just hung out the entire time. And then they brought more people. And that's how you build a community, which is a large part of making retro content, because I think we all have separate communities that sort of, I don't know, I love my community. They're amazing. I think also there's something to be said for just retro game adjacent things, like reading a manual. I have read entire books on stream before. I read, if anyone knows, the Worlds of Power novel series from like 1989. I read a couple of those. I did a Mario World Choose Your Own Adventure book that I illustrated live while I was reading it. I've done, sometimes I'll take Mario 3 and it's like, okay, so maybe there's a bingo board you can do with it, or you can do a randomizer version of it, or you can do, all right, let's do a warp and then warp back and there's like reverse boss order runs, all sorts of different things you can do with just one game, which is kind of cool. On top of that, I mean, again, there's something, and maybe, I don't know if y'all experience this, since I'm playing every Super Nintendo game, I play a lot of bad video games.
What?
Yeah, a lot of them. I have to play a sports game every 5 games. Yeah, fishing is great. And there's something about experiencing a bad video game with like a chat full of people who are just absolutely destroying it with you. And you know what? Like, do I suffer? Yes. Is it worth it? Yeah, because we're still having fun, you know? And I think, like, no matter what you're doing, if you're just, like, even if it's just you playing a game, you don't even have to have a camera if you don't want to. If you're just playing a game on the internet and there's 1 or 2 people watching, that's retro content, baby. You got it, you know? And, I mean, that's kind of how we all started, I'm sure, you know?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I don't know, the world is kind of your oyster. It's limitless. There's
And I think
That's your imagination.
one of the interesting thing is like you bring in the expertise, but also like if you don't know it and they do, what they will do is they will, especially if they're good and they take the no back seating, they will watch and be like, I can't wait till they get to this part. I can't wait. I want to see their reaction. I want to see their reaction. You know, because the streamer don't know what's coming in, but they do. And there's a lot of people that'll go in and be like, I can't wait to see how he reacts to that.
I first played Silent Hill 2 years ago for the first time ever.
Yeah.
I played 1, 2, and 3, and everyone else had already played it, and they just sort of let me experience it, and I was like, why didn't you tell me this is scary? No, I'm okay with backseating. But
I was going to say,
still.
when you mentioned that, you said you just played Final Fantasy VI recently.
Yeah.
Did you experience, what was your chat experience like when you had that?
Well, there were a lot of people who were very passionate about the game.
Yeah.
Who couldn't help themselves from alluding when certain things were going to happen.
I can't wait for this.
Yeah. There were some moments that were completely unspoiled for me, though.
Good.
Like, I absolutely did. Did everybody play this game? Do you mind if I spoil it a little bit? Okay. There were some parts, like Kefka, you know, destroying the world. I had absolutely no clue was going to happen. And then all the death scenes, I was like, how did we play this as kids and then not be messed up for a long time after
That's one
that?
of like the best moments in video gaming to me, so I'm so glad you were unspoiled.
Yeah, that was totally unspoiled for me. So yeah, so you have that, the people who want to live vicariously through you, and then you have the people who are like their skin is itching to tell you what's gonna happen. Like they want to be that person. But it was really one of the best set of streams I ever did because A, I saw why the game was a masterpiece. Like I never experienced it. And B, we got to do that together. And now people are like, hey, Ash, remember that time when Kefka did blah and you were like blah? And I was like, yes. So yeah, that's the magic of it. But to kind of expand a little bit, actually, before I move into this slide, you mentioned the manuals. And lately, I have been doing a series on TikTok and Instagram where I take a Super Nintendo game manual and I just leaf through it with the background music from the game. And people love it. You know how many comments I get of, I never saw this manual before, or I missed that time of game manuals. We lost some magic here. So that's been really cool to be able to share with people today who never saw like Yoshi's Island, the manual for Yoshi's Island, for example. So, so this is an illustration of just ideas that you can get. Like first casual playthrough is kind of like what we're talking about when we say we go through a game for the first time. Speed running challenges, which I know y'all are expert at. I am not. Challenge runs, which is really cool. Have any of y'all done challenge runs before?
Dabbled, yeah.
Kind of messed around, and I have noticed everything changes over time. I have been noticing that challenge runs are starting to become, and randomizers, you're going to get to that in a minute too. Challenge runs and randomizers are starting to become very popular. It seems like their popularity is rising. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I've noticed too, like, it's not limited now, like challenge runs and speed runs, because that used to be very retro game heavy. It's now getting more like, I know people who will play Elden Ring with a steering wheel,
And a guitar.
and a guitar
Yeah,
or a
one of
dance
my
pad.
One of my moderators does that. She
Yeah.
plays the guitar.
Yeah, so
I mean, there's a dog who plays baseball now.
That's right.
So-
the best dog that plays baseball.
That's right.
Shout outs to PB. And retro achievements. Have y'all ever done retro achievements before?
Yeah.
I have not, but I'm going to say this. I love watching it. I haven't done them yet. I've got it set up, but I love the retro achievements, and I think they just started putting them on GameCube
Yes,
games now.
yeah.
I love it. I love watching it.
Literally a couple of weeks ago. And then randos, fan translations, overallers, and shufflers. And I forgot to put like Kaizo.
Yeah.
Like Kaizo
Yeah.
stuff has been really hot. So if you don't know what a Kaizo is, like imagine someone takes Super Mario World and then they re-edit the levels like Mario Maker style and make it more challenging, and then people try to do those runs and they're really difficult.
And
Yeah, I think more challenging is putting it lightly.
Yeah.
That's an understatement.
when
It's
I
mean.
when I started watching streams on JTV, those were the games that were crazy popular. The way the vibe was back in 2011 was they would make these ROM hacks of these games, these older games, but they would make them super hard.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that got people in the door, was playing these ridiculously hard games. And people loved it, and now it's starting to kind of come back around a little bit, which is interesting to watch.
And
Yeah.
I want to talk about shufflers for just a second.
Yeah.
Have any of y'all ever done a shuffler before?
Never.
Oh, it's a cool program that allows you to basically switch, like play a bunch of games at once and switch between them at random intervals. I think that's a challenge run in and of itself, because I'm jumping in Mario. Just kidding, I'm back to Mega Man 2 and I just fell in a pit. It's a great time. It's a great way to sort of, again, to re-experience games you already love in a new way. I can't speak enough about shufflers. I love those so much.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up. Like, how many times have you played like The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, where you know it like the back of your hand, and then you do a randomizer or a shuffler, and then you're like, oh, this is like bringing new life into something that I know very well. So those are great ideas if you want to get into doing, retro gaming. So how do you start? Where do you start? Like, if you have no idea, you have like $200 and you're like, I want to get into it. Where do you start?
Target. You go to Target and you buy a microphone. I think as far as like tech-wise, there's just really there's not a better time to get into it, because you can I like literally what you said, $200. I think you can go to Best Buy and get like a streamer kit for like $100.
Yeah.
Will you get the top of the line stuff that you necessarily the top streamers need? No, but you'll get something that'll get you in the door. And I don't think any of us started with the best equipment. You never do. But heck, I still use my Yeti microphone.
I
from
started.
when I started.
I started with a Rock Band microphone.
Oh,
Yes.
I have.
Okay,
Stre-
legit,
I have.
that's
I have also
actually a
streamed.
good
That is a
microphone,
great
though.
microphone. I have also streamed with a Rock Band microphone before.
It works.
It's
It
so
works.
good.
Listen,
Yeah.
if you can get whatever you need to get that connection going, you put a phone to your
Mhm.
console or your TV screen, and then you're just talking. Let me tell you how I started, okay? I have a background in graphic design, and the only thing I had was a Mac. and I had an iMac, and it was the built-in microphone, the built-in camera, a capture card, and my Switch, and that was it. That was all I had.
And that's all you needed. You
Yeah.
know? Like, again, that's the foot in the door. There are so many streamers out there who just have that.
Yeah.
And you can still find success. You can still, I mean, whatever your metric for success is, I mean, you can still have fun doing it, which that's my metric for success.
Yeah.
And so, like, as long as you go out there, get a starter kit or whatever you want to find, or just research some good microphones if you've got $200, and find a game.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about how to get those in a second too.
Yeah, let's see what the next slide is. Here's some
The
examples.
list, the shopping list.
Some examples. So, I mean, at the bare minimum, I feel like, your computer, you, and a microphone. Like that even if it's all you've got is a laptop, right? But if you want to get super fancy with it, you can stream from real hardware. It is possible, and all you need is like maybe an Elgato HD60S, which is a capture card. There are many other AverMedia. You know what I wish that there was? A program where you could rent equipment, test it out, see if you like it, and then send it back. You know what I mean? So what do you all use for your setup?
So for like streaming Switch or something like that, I'm an Elgato guy. That's I got the HD60S Plus Pro, something like that recently. I upgraded, and well worth it actually. I use an Elgato. Pretty simple. It's a pretty simple pass through. As you can see, this model here that Bobby has. If you want to just show it to the crowd, it's cables in, cables out, and that's it. It's very simple, and you can do that with pretty much every modern console. I've streamed PlayStation 5, I've streamed Switch, I've streamed Xbox 360 since then, whatever. I also, going by what's on there, I mean, I use emulators. I've streamed PC games. There are various programs you can use. Most people use what's called OBS. Mm-hmm. There are other alternatives to that, but OBS is pretty much what you want to go with for most people because it's free.
Open source.
Open source and pretty good to use, pretty easy to use. That's me. I'm an Elgato guy all day.
Yeah. So one thing I will also mention, because this is the part nobody wants to say, is that all you need is just a basic streamer kit and stuff, and that's all you need. That's great to figure out if you really want to do this.
Yes.
If you really want to do this, then yes, you are going to need to invest some money, and you're probably not going to get that money back. I have invested so much money and not gotten any of it back, but I've enjoyed myself. So I actually do have some of the more, the next step. So this wouldn't be step 1, but maybe step 3 or 4 or whatever. So I actually have the internal card of the Elgato. I've got the 4K, which is an internal card that goes into your PC, but this is what I have for my laptop or whatever, so what we're going to be using tomorrow night, which we'll talk about at the end. But this is the HD360S. It has an HDMI in and an HDMI out pass-through with no lag, so that's what you can put into a TV to get no lag. Now, we're talking retro games, right? Well, if you're going to actually use actual hardware, you're going to need one of these. So this is not the latest version, but this is called a RetroTink, and it's up there, I believe, on a thing. So what this actually has is component or composite and S-video inputs to HDMI output. And there's actually there's an upscaler in here, so it's not just passing it through straight, it's actually passing it through filters. You can put scan lines, and it's all done inside this.
Which one is that?
This is the RetroTink 2X.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this is the 2X Pro. They're up to the 5X now,
Yeah.
which has a lot more.
And they just came out with
a 4K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So that's what this guy is, and so this has HDMI out, which would go into this. But then, remember when I said I had an old PC?
Yes.
So what I have to use for that is I found this off Amazon. And what this does is this takes a VGA input
Wow.
and turns it into an HDMI output, and you can also put your 3.5 millimeter audio in, and it sends it out over the HDMI feed, so you get the audio over the HDMI.
Wow.
And so this goes into the Elgato, and that's how I capture the old PC, anything with a VGA signal.
That's amazing.
I'm gonna start streaming so much Mavis Beacon teaches.
I know, right?
I've always wanted to see that.
I didn't even know they made something like that. It doesn't shock me, but
Yeah.
that's wild. So on my setup, Bobby talks about at some point, if you want to do this full time, you got to invest. That's what I've done. I have a crazy setup, but it's more just of, I don't want to switch wires. So I just have a jungle behind the desk, but the camera's not behind the desk, so it doesn't matter. But what I have is, I have the RetroTink 4X. I did not bring it like Bobby did, but I do have the.
I thought I was going to need it tomorrow, so
I know,
just
right?
packed it.
Yeah, so we're good. But I have the internal Elgato as well, like he does, and I don't have the 4K yet, but I have the 5X. I think that's the one that's on there, and the 5X is really nice because just like that one, you can put in component, and I think also, does it also have S-Video?
S-Video's on the side.
Yeah, and I think that one also has what's called RGB SCART also put into it, which is something that wasn't really used in America all that often. It's more of a European thing, but the video quality is really good, so it's really nice.
If you want to stream Sega Saturn games, you need a SCART.
The SCART is really good. The SCART is really good, but kind of what Bobby has laid out here, and the good thing about this equipment is they have ways to get certain types depending on what your budget is. You don't have to, Elgato doesn't just serve like the super high-end stuff. You can get stuff like Carty said, just to get in the door. And RetroTink kind of does that as well. They have a lot of different variety of options. I think this is really a really good time to get in, no matter what your budget is or how much money you can spend or what your overhead is. You can get a variety of things just to kind of get your feet wet a little bit if you can't just get the really, really good stuff. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how good your equipment is. What matters is how good you are. So everything will kind of fall into place. But all this stuff is kind of in line with what I have on my setup. I just have a whole bunch of switches and stuff like that, so I don't have to switch cables. But it's really nice how we have everything these days, like these boxes that just shift everything into a digital HDMI signal. We didn't have that when I started. The first capture card that I ever had, the Blackmagic Intensity Pro, that was a USB 3.0, and you had to change the resolution on your device, like your console, to match whatever the resolution was on the capture card. You had to do it manually every time. It's way better these days.
Would you like to know my setup in 2009
Yes.
on Ustream? So get this, because I had to. You have it so easy. Back in my day, no.
Yeah, see, there it is.
So I had, I think it was the Dazzle HD,
Yeah,
or Dazzle
Dazzles
Pro.
were
Okay.
very were
So
very
that's what I
popular.
had, and that went in via USB. And I used a program called Webcam Max. And Webcam Max put out the 320 by 240, and I used Adobe Media Encoder to talk directly to Ustream servers. Now, I had cameras. I had 2 FireWire cameras, camcorders. And you needed to have 2 different FireWire cards because you can only run one on a card. Because you could only, like, you could have like 2 FireWire ports, but only one could, bandwidth issues. So I had 2 FireWire cards, and that way in Webcam Max, I could switch which camera. And then later on, I put like a USB camera, one of those like Logitech that had the Omni that you could like have a little program that moved it around. And that was like on a long USB stick, and that was my 3rd camera. And I could like have it across the room and it'd be looking around. But all of it was in this like little 320 by 240 stream up to Ustream, and I had to jury rig all of it together.
Animated GIFs.
Yes. Yes.
Those were the days.
I do not miss those days. OBS is amazing.
Can I add one more thing too?
Yes.
Consoles are up here. There are also lots of modern sort of repro consoles. I use an analog Super NT to play Super Nintendo games because while I do have my Super Nintendo from when I was a baby, it is yellow and does not work very well. And so you can find lots of other sort of modern reproduction consoles if you're not looking to spend, $800 to get a working old classic console. There's lots of affordable options out there because again, I think we've all upgraded our equipment since we started, but I'm a teacher. I don't make that much money, and so you gotta get.
Yes.
Listen, thank you so much. Tell the governor. There's lots you can do that is cost affordable. I guess
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to put out there.
Like, I want to tell y'all about GOG, Good Old Games. GOG.com is a great place to go if you want to buy like old DOS games. They just had their summer sale. I think I bought Mass Effect and it's the Mass Effect Ultimate Edition, which is 1 through 2 and 3 with all the DLC for $5.99. So if you want to get into playing old games, like there's definitely ways where you don't even need a console. Like you want to play King's Quest, GOG has got it, you know, or like Steam is also another example. Or if you have a Nintendo Switch, guess what? Nintendo Switch is online. They have the NES games, Sega Genesis games, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, there are many different, and the thing that is here on this slide, AnStream Arcade, like it's a service that you sign up for, and I think it's like $20 a year, and it has ZX Spectrum and Amiga and Arcade, and you know, you save your state online. It's all on a cloud, and you can even do multiplayer, which is really cool. So there are tons of ways. And oh, one other thing that I have that I really love that's not on here is a Game Boy operator. For $50, it's USB-C that can hook up to my computer, and I can plug in any Game Boy game I own to it. Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and then basically I can also use it to back up my saves and back up the ROM of the game. So it's awesome, and they're making a Super Nintendo version that they're working on right now. So that's really cool. But yeah, there's tons of different ways. The idea is we want to show you anybody can get into it. It's accessible for everybody. So if you want to get into it, do it. So the next question is real hardware or software. Do you all have a preference? Does it matter to you? Because to some people, when you start to broadcast or create content, video content, it matters to them because of the way that it looks. So what does it matter to you?
No. I mean, I know that there are some people who are very. It's a pure. I think it's a purist thing, right?
Yeah.
And I don't knock anybody who is very much. I must play the actual game on the actual console. I think that's great. I love that. But I mean, again, I don't make a lot of money, so sometimes you're going to play a game any way you can, and I think that's great. You know, downloading from GOG is just as good as buying the original floppy disks, to me, you know. Or I can play The Legend of Zelda: The Link to the Past on my Switch for a lot cheaper than going to that room out there and buying A Link to the Past. Though you should please support your local businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's me, you know.
So no, it doesn't matter to me. That being said, I do try to use the original hardware as much as possible, mainly because when I was doing those PC streams, those Sierra streams, if you don't know what the Roland MT32 is, it's an external, like it's actually a big box. And it's got a little LCD screen on the front, and they would actually put messages on that. Now, DOSBox has a really wonderful Roland MT32 emulation. You can hear the exact same sounds coming out of DOSBox. DOSBox does an amazing job. But I kind of like the feel of having it on my MS-DOS 6.22 PC. And I even put a camera on that little LCD screen so it broadcasts over Twitch so you can see all the like little messages that they put, insert Buckazoid and things like that on there. So I like using the original hardware, but I don't have to. I am not a zealot about it.
So, originally,
He's been waiting.
I was like, real hardware. But things have changed over the last few years, and some of these emulators have gotten really good. DuckStation is a tremendous PS1 emulator. They just completely overhauled the PCSX2.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that thing is completely different now. It's awesome.
I mean, Dolphin.
Yeah.
Dolphin is just the wildest emulator ever.
I'm telling you, I used to be. It was just for me. I would never go into anybody else's production and be like, "What are you doing? What is it?" That wasn't me. But for me, I love the feel of original hardware. When somebody comes into the stream and says, "Is this emulator real hardware?" I love holding up the controller and being like, "Real hardware." But now with these emulators, the line. I'm not going to say the line is blurred anymore, just because I think the emulators can breathe new life into these games. And I think you get a different experience. It's almost like we were talking about earlier. You can derive different experiences from the same source by doing different things. I don't think either one is better than the other. I originally started out as an original hardware guy, but the emulators these days and the way everything has changed, I love it all equally. So I don't think there's any wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, and and like we talked about earlier, it doesn't like gate people from the hobby, right? And cost becomes less of a factor. And also, I don't know if any of you all have ever used like a Mr. FPGA, but that thing is like incredible. Now it's expensive, you know. That's something if you really want to get into this, that's an investment. But that's hardware simulation, and if you look at it, you wouldn't know the difference unless you don't use like any of the cosmetic stuff like the scan lines and like all that stuff. So love the scan lines.
And I was not always like that, but I don't know what happened. But
Yeah.
The scanline filters got better.
Yeah.
I put those scan lines on Duck Station and play Silent Hill 1 on it. I'm just like, oh my god, this is so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so homely to me. It feels good.
Yeah. So, but there are benefits and drawbacks to each one, right? Like, there are people who are going to be like, oh, well, the real cred of having the actual hardware, you know, and it has that look that sometimes emulation might not be able to do, but as Enigma said, that technology is improving, and input latency is important for speedrunning. So for people who speedrun, emulators might not necessarily be the best go-to, or there might be a separate category altogether.
Yeah, community differs, just depending on how they want to govern it. So
Yeah, and games can be expensive.
yeah, that's the big thing. Yeah.
Disk rot is a thing, you know.
Yeah.
And they may stop working. That's just a reality we have to deal with, which is a good thing that we can cultivate a culture where emulators and real hardware can coexist.
Yeah. Please donate to the Video Game History Foundation.
Yes.
They're
Yes.
a wonderful charity. You can get a free game magazine every month. It's very great, very wonderful.
Yeah.
So talking about street cred with real hardware, as someone who, I mean, I'll just say, like, when I first started streaming, it was all emulation all the time. You know, again, I didn't have anything. But now, listen, there's a Super Nintendo game where you have to learn how to play piano, and I don't know how to play piano, but I had to buy a piano for it, and that's just sitting around my house, and that's kind of cool. You know, I have this 1991 piano that hooks into a Super Nintendo. There's an exercise bike I can get that hooks into a Super Nintendo. Having some of that street cred, I don't know if that's what I would call it, but I mean, like, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool having that weird stuff in your house.
I mean, did you hear all the oohs when I held up my VGA to HDMI thing? So, but yeah, the disc rod is a thing because what I did a stream on September 9th for the Dreamcast birthday, and I had bought at one of these shows, Skies of Arcadia, and I had never played it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pop it in right here on stream, and I had my Dreamcast right next to me. The Dreamcast worked, but it turns out that disc was a little scratched, so we couldn't get past the opening. And so I couldn't actually play it. And like I bought a secondhand copy at a show, and so that's why like I am not going to be like, oh, you must use real hardware, because you might have the real hardware and it still doesn't work.
I must ask, did you try the toothpaste trick?
I did not.
What is the toothpaste?
I don't know what it is, but toothpaste fills those grooves and smooths them out. I have not saved, but salvaged many an old disc. So if you still have it,
I do.
give it a shot. What I did, I just put a little film of toothpaste, and I just hold it under. What I did, I don't know if you're supposed to do this, but it worked for me. I just held it under like a very low pressure faucet with kind of like warm water, and just let the water knock the toothpaste off. We resuscitated Halo 2 one day doing that. So I mean,
Wait, important question. Is it gel toothpaste or like the other
Like Crest.
toothpaste?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say probably gel would be the best one, but I use special toothpaste now. So I haven't done this in 20 years. So
I had a copy of Breath of Fire 3 for PlayStation 1. That game rules. But it had a hole in it. It had a chunk taken out of the disc.
There's supposed to be a hole in the center.
Thanks, Bobby. And so, good night, everybody. But I put toothpaste on it, and the game worked. It was great.
Love that. That is awesome. That is awesome. So the benefits and drawbacks of software: low barrier to entry, cost effective, great for preservation, many ways to create fresh experiences with retro achievements, randos, and etc. But there could be an anti-emulation crowd out there, and they will let you know it. And poor emulation can impact visual inputs for games or sound and audio.
yeah, I learned this the hard way. Don't do scan lines on stream. It doesn't look the same. If the user changes the video panel, it's not gonna be the right size. It's gonna look weird. Don't do scan lines on stream. Found that out the hard way.
Yeah. And like we talked about earlier with like people loving to backseat, oh, they love to tell you how to run your tech. They absolutely love to tell you that. So, we are getting close to the end. Do you have any game suggestions for the budding retro streamer?
Oh, and they all look at me again. What's happening? It just happens. I mean, streaming is about your heart, right? It's what's close to you. So, like, what did I start with? I like old RPGs. I want to play Final Fantasy. I want to play Lufia and the Fortress of Doom.
Oh my god, why do you love all the games I love?
Because we have good taste. And so I played those games. You know, I play every year. I have Western month in January, and so we'll play the Wild Arms series on PlayStation 1 because I love Wild Arms. And just find a game just find a game that you love. If you don't love the game that you're going to stream, then why are you doing it? You know. And I say this as someone who plays games I've never played before, and sometimes they're bad, but I love that experience too. You know, and so it's about, like, you're making content theoretically for other people. It's got to be for you first. And so if you're not having fun, don't do it. So I don't know, if I'm picking a specific game, for me, like, I think a good RPG is slow, and you know, it's I don't know, I feel like you're not gonna, like, RPG communities aren't gonna have people coming in telling you how to play it. They're just gonna come in and be supportive and be like, I like watching someone play Chrono Trigger. And so that to me is a good start. But
Ditto.
Covered it, huh? Well, I'm gonna tell you this. It's not something that I do often, or really, I would say probably none of you have ever seen me do it. But one of my favorite memories of streaming early on was one day I randomly just decided to throw on Super Mario Bros. 3. That is a game that I am very, very connected to in terms of my youth. I loved that game. Me and my cousin the first time me and my cousin ever had gaming all-nighters was a Super Mario Bros. 3. And one day, I think it was 2013 or 14, I couldn't figure out what to do, or whatever I was doing wasn't working. I put in Super Mario Bros. 3, and it was just like magic. It was like one of those one-time magic deals. Kind of want to do it again now.
Yeah,
But Super Mario Bros. 3, that's my number one. If we're not talking about Silent Hill stuff, of course. I just remember I had such a great time with Super Mario Bros. 3. I enjoyed it. The chat loved it. I just think that's a really solid choice. It's awesome.
So if y'all don't know what this is, let me know. But would you ever do Super Mario with crowd control?
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Crowd
So
control.
crowd control is where people can pay money to alter the game and impact the game to, like, either help you or to troll you.
That's usually what it is. It's
Yeah.
trolling.
Yeah, no helping.
It's really, really good for raising money, and it's really, really good for, like, you can you can get your own income from it, but I use it a lot for charity, so it's a really good tool. If I had to make a suggestion, exactly like y'all said, play something that you love. For a first time, if you've never done a retro game before, play something you're familiar with, because it will make it easier for you to speak with the game as you're playing it, especially for a new experience. So I am a little bit, like, biased towards Zelda games, so I always go with Link to the Past because that's my favorite. But I think it's a game that everybody just universally enjoys. That or Doom. Doom,
Doom's
people
cool,
really
yeah.
loved Doom. So that's my suggestion.
I think with like picking a game that you love, right? Like, that's the thing, because I don't know, when you're building a community, you're trying to connect to people, you're forming a rapport, sometimes with strangers on the internet, which can be daunting. But I mean, if you're sitting there talking, like Mario 3, I can talk about how when Mario 3 came out and my dad and I played it, and then I went to sleep because I was a little boy, I was so sleepy, and I woke up and my dad had beaten Mario 3 without me. That's a great story to tell, even though it's a terrible tragedy, and that connects you to people, you know? Like, I don't know, it's getting to know people, it's rapport, it's I don't know, I love it. I love streaming.
I always tell people whenever I play Link to the Past, I always tell people about when I was in school and I knew I was getting Super Nintendo for Christmas, because I would tear the paper a little bit every day until I finally saw what it was, and then I ratted on myself by accident. Like, my mom was like talking to me about something. I was like I was in the car on my way to school, and I was like, I'm really excited for my Super Nintendo. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, why did I just say that?
Why did you say
I
that?
don't know. I was a little kid, and I was just so excited to stay home and play video games. But yeah, I got in trouble. So I always tell that story. So if anybody has any questions about any of the stuff that we talked about today, I would love to hear it. But otherwise, I want to say a major thank you and shout out to all my panel people. But
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
First, is your dad still disappointed in you for not staying awake?
Wow.
Probably, I'm sure, yeah.
Half joking, half real. As retro gamers, how do you not have a OG disc doctor to work for you?
Right,
Oh,
yeah.
you know what? For me personally, I don't have one because I've heard that they do more harm than good.
Yeah.
I've actually heard that too.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
You want to know what also does more harm than good? Blowing into the cartridge.
That's a myth.
Hi, that's my thing. It's a double entendre. So, anyway, yeah, no, but
You know,
this,
every few years, it seems like a new streaming service comes up, and you just mentioned crowd control. And I just saw an advertisement for a new Twitch competitor that's their whole pitch, is your audience can help boost the game. And so as a retro gamer, what would it take for you to leave your home streaming channel to try something new?
lots of money.
Yeah.
But you're a teacher.
No, so lots of money. I don't know, like, and I don't know if y'all have different answers than this to me. I mean, for me, if I look at other streaming, like, I thought about doing YouTube streaming too, just because you can now do it simultaneously from the same sort of streaming platform. But then I look at other platforms, and I don't want to denigrate anybody here, but like, I don't know, I look at other platforms and I'm like, I don't like the people who run it. I don't like their politics. I don't want to be involved in it. Or so, to me, what it would take is, are there people there who want to watch it? Is it easy to do? Then maybe, sure. But I don't know, kind of found a home. And so it depends, right? Depends on if that lasts.
Yeah, it depends on me where the audience is.
Yeah.
And if my audience really wants to move to YouTube because they really don't like Twitch, then yeah, I'd consider it. But if my audience is like, no, I'm on Twitch, I've got, the people that are viewing, they're on Twitch, they're not going to go somewhere else, then I'd rather keep the community together. And it's why I don't multi-stream, is because my community talk to each other. And if you are multi-streaming, they can all talk to you, but they can't talk to each other. And so you don't get that community aspect. And so it really has to be like, does my community want to move with me? And then get more people. And right now, the biggest community is on Twitch still right now.
Yeah. Streaming is conversation
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
If I can be really honest, it would take an astronomical amount of whatever to get me to leave Twitch, because Twitch has just been my place for forever. And not to get too deep or philosophical, but when I started streaming, I was very much going nowhere in life, and I didn't know where I was going, and Twitch has kind of taken me to where I am now, and things are really, really well. And I don't want to say like ride or die, I'll be there till the end, because you never say never in life. You can't ever say that. But Twitch has just always felt like my home, and it would just have to take a lot. Maybe not necessarily money. Like Bobby says, you go where the audience is. And right now the audience they stay with Twitch. They might dabble on YouTube and some other things that may pop up, but I think we've seen over the years with some of these huge streamers that get deals, and then their deals end, and then they go right back to Twitch, and their people go right back with them to Twitch if they even went in the first place. So
Don't be faithful to a company, be faithful to your audience.
that's what I was about to say. I don't want it to sound like I'm being loyal to a corporation or a business, because it's not that.
Yeah, they
It's
won't be
just-
loyal to you.
They never will. And it's just one of those things where it feels like home, but not because of the business. It's because of the people there. So it would just take a bit for me, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Twitch ambassador, so I love Twitch.
So you signed a contract.
And that's my home as well. So, but I do upload all my VODs to YouTube, and there are people who find me from YouTube, and then they come over like, now I can talk to you live on Twitch. And there have been many videos that I posted on TikTok, and sometimes I stream on TikTok, and people are like, man, I really love hanging out with you. I'm going to hang out with you on Twitch because you stream there more. But it's just a matter of, I use those other things as tools, and they are tools to help people understand who I am better and to understand what kind of content I create better. But I also love using Twitter to just like post like, here's a cool video game find that I found at a convention I went to today, which I will be doing later. But you know what I mean? Like, those are all tools to help kind of drive back to what I do on Twitch. But that's a good question.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else got any other questions? Yes.
For those of you that do this full time, I know that it's a passion, you're passionate about what you do, so it's not like you're going to work 8 hours a day. But how many hours do you typically spend every week?
For me, it is. It kind of fluctuates. I'm not one of those Iron Men that do every day. I give it about 4 days a week. I am taking a little bit of a sabbatical from streaming right now just to do some house repairs and stuff like that. But when I'm going normally, I'd probably say my streams usually range, it's almost like a job. I go about 8 hours. I try to treat it like a shift, but it doesn't feel like that. So I'd probably say anywhere from about 32 to 35 hours a week. I think I put a good bit of that time in a week.
Now, how much?
When you say 8 hours, is that including production, or is that straight?
From the moment I hit the button to the moment I end, about 8 hours.
So
Yeah,
how much?
I put it in, yeah.
How much time do you spend off stream, like preparing for the next, like preparing layouts and all that?
That's what you mean? So
You're hitting a 40-hour week at that point.
yeah, exactly. I do. I mean, I have a production on my stream. Like, I have
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that goes on, and I never want to fall behind, and I never don't want to feel like unfresh. So I'm always changing things. I'm always kind of looking at things. Like, for instance, I'm taking a little sabbatical right now, but I have made new intro videos and new stingers and stuff like that. So the actual start to end is about 35 hours, but if you put all that other stuff on top, like managing a bot, doing graphics, and I do a lot of my own stuff too. All of my emotes, if they're not animated or hand-drawn, I'm the one that's created them because it's me. So there's a lot of time that goes into
Discord,
it.
right?
I do, yeah, and I run a Discord. Yeah, that's where I've been. I stay present online while I am not streaming. So yeah, it's almost feels like a never-ending thing, but I love it, so it never feels like work.
And you have sponsorships as well, so
Yep.
there's the meetings with the sponsors.
I have
and
I'm
getting
with a
those
talent
sales.
agency, so
Yeah.
I have to. We just had a thing. I won't talk about it, but we
Nope,
just had a
nope.
thing. Things pop up, so I've been
Yep.
dealing with that this week. But yeah, it almost feels like it's never ending, but
Yeah.
it never feels like a job. I just enjoy that I even have the ability to be in that spot. So a lot of hours, but very rewarding, and I love it.
We're not full time, so
Oh, okay. Well,
I have a day job.
am, so yeah. I stream 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, no more than usually 4 hours if I'm feeling really like into the game, and very rarely 5 hours. But most of my time is spent outside, cutting new content, like Enigma was saying, like whether I'm working on overlays, animations, emotes, or commissioning somebody to do it, or writing proposals for events like this, or just trying to find other ways to get people to discover who I am and my channel.
That's the big thing I think that
Yeah.
we do as full timers. We got to figure out how to get more people in the door.
Yeah.
So
You have to do that as part-time, too. Right?
Yeah.
At any
Any
Yeah,
level.
that is,
yeah.
Money in the door, that can take a lot of your time up too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes like if I'm doing something on Twitter, for example, like I wrote a list of, hey, here's the Steam summer sale. Here's a list of 5 games I think you should get. And why is that helpful? A, it connects me to developers. B, it also helps me to showcase games that I love. And I'm having a conversation with the people who care about the same things that I love. So all of that counts, me, probably more than 40 hours.
It's wild how we don't really think about that. do we?
Yeah.
Or at least I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it does almost feel like I wake up, get something to drink, get going, go sit at the computer, see what's going on, and then I just
Start
kinda
working.
Yeah.
Kind of start thinking of stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
being in the podcast scene for so long and seeing people and talking about, people like, what do I need to do to be a full-time podcaster? I ask people, I'm like, what do you think? And I know we're streaming, but podcast is probably the same thing.
Similar.
What do you think somebody who is a full-time podcaster, what are they spending most of their time on? And they'll say, being on the mic, No. Editing, no. Being a salesman.
Yeah.
Because the thing you are spending the most time as a podcaster is you are trying to sell ad time on your podcast, or you're trying to sell yourself to an audience, or sell yourself to some marketers and stuff, because that is how you get your income. You are a salesman, which is why I don't do it full time, because I don't want to do that. I'm not going to say I'm going to be bad at it. I just don't want to.
Yeah.
So that's why I've never done it full time, and then will never be a streamer full time. Not because I don't think I could. It's just I don't want to be a salesman.
I think, I don't know, it kind of, I mean, again, as a part-timer, I think no one starts full-time, you know? Like, you had to work to get to where you are.
Oh, yeah.
And so, we've talked a lot today about starting streaming. We've talked a lot today about intro, which is, I think that's where you want to be. Hopefully that's why y'all are here. Because if you work at it, if you do enough, you can get to that, right? Hopefully, with a lot of luck.
It took me 6 years.
Yeah, a lot of luck, a lot of effort, a lot
You
of.
gotta work hard.
Yeah.
You also gotta get lucky. And
Yeah.
I think they say, what is it, like, success happens with hard work and
Luck, meet.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It took me a while.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid of people telling you no. You can't be like, like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to do this and I don't believe in me. No, you got to believe in you
Yeah.
first.
Yep.
And you got to be like friends with failure and
Mhm.
be like, well, failure is not a bad word. It is just another step to where I want to go.
You have to be okay with streaming to 1 or 2 people in your chat, because 1 or 2 people in your chat is more than, I think the stat was 60% of people streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great,
If you have 5 people in your stream, you're like in the top 20%.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, I don't know. Even as a part-timer, I put a lot of work into my stream. I work a 40-hour job, but then when I come home, okay, well, let me spend an hour or 2 editing a video together, or something dumb that I'm going to do on stream. Let me make a layout or a background. And you put your work into it, and the people come.
Yep.
They see the value of your love for what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's about love, y'all.
Yeah. And with that, our lovely talk is complete. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. Everybody go down the line and tell everyone where they can find you. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for putting it together, Ash. You want a round of applause for AshSaidHi?
Oh, thanks. I love doing this.
I'll start. You can find me in Smyrna. I live in Smyrna, so just walk around. I'm there somewhere. But twitch.tv/cartridge blowers. There is an S. It is plural. I'll tell you why if you come. But
We gotta get them.
nailed it. See, the mystery is what does it. The intrigue. Yeah, I stream sporadically these days, especially honestly, with school starting, I stream a little more on a schedule. During the summer, it's more sporadic. But yeah, come by. I mean, I'll be streaming probably when I leave here. I'm gonna go home, probably stream a little bit tonight. So come on by.
Yeah.
Come see. I'm playing.
Gonna go get some games over there and then take them
Right,
home.
right.
Yep.
I'm not playing Nintendo World
Yeah.
Championship. That's what I'm on right now. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I do my podcast over at the Voice of Geeks Network. So it's vognetwork.com is the website, but on twitch.tv/VOG Network, it is Sunday nights at 8 o'clock for 1 hour. And I talk about the video game industry or games that I'm playing. I do have a personal Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Bobby Blackwolf. I don't really stream there much, but I did stream Nintendo World Championships last night because I had my connection to it because I was a city semifinalist in Atlanta in 1990. So I actually I got destroyed in the semis, and Thor Ackerland and I are mortal enemies. He actually doesn't know I exist, but he won the category I was in. I know he exists because he won my category. But I actually streamed last night with that, and I put on my old NWC semifinalist hat, which looks like crap because it's like a painter's hat or something, and people are like, that's not real. But you find YouTube videos, and yeah, that's what they gave us, And so I streamed that and realized I peaked in 1990 as a gamer. So that's at twitch.tv/Bobby Blackwolf. And and also at Bobby Blackwolf on most social media platforms, at BobbyBlackwolf.com where the skies are blue. That's my favorite platform right now. And that's where you can find me there and on Sunday nights. And also tomorrow night here in this very room at 7 o'clock.
That's right.
we'll talk about that.
We'll be back here. But yes, we'll be back here tomorrow. But if you're not going to be here tomorrow, you can find me. Like I said, my home base is Twitch, twitch.tv/AnEternalEnigma. I'm a professional. I have business cards if anybody needs them. So, but I am on all social media stuff under the same name. Thankfully, I figured out the name that I wanted to have on the internet 22 years ago. So I locked it down on everything. So you can find me on anything. He's talking about where the skies are blue. I'm still where the skies are black and chrome and weird, but you know, I'm everywhere. I'm on Threads as well.
Yeah.
I also do some short form stuff. I don't really go crazy with it because I'm my own editor and time, you know, can be precious sometimes. I'm on TikTok, YouTube. I upload all of my VODs to YouTube as well. I have a separate channel for that, and I'm on Instagram as well. And I'll give you a little bit of a scoop. I am taking a little some time off right now. I had some house repairs, personal stuff going on. But I'll be back on August 2nd. My community doesn't know that yet, but August.
I'm publishing the VOD now,
But-
actually live.
But August 2nd, that's going to be my 13-year stream anniversary. I did my, thank you. Thank you. I did my very first stream on Justin TV on August 2nd, 2011. It was a first-time playthrough of Silent Hill Origins. That was,
It's gonna be your stream mitzvah.
and that's right. And I used Adobe Media Live Encoder to do that stream. So I'll be back. I'll be back on August 2nd. I am going to be on this is another scoop. I'm going to be on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday schedule. And it'll be good. But we'll be here tomorrow as well.
Yeah.
Me and Bobby will be doing Silent Hill 1. So
Yep, we're doing a speedrun showcase in this very room at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. He's going to be running Silent Hill 1 for the PlayStation 1.
to kind of fit with the retro thing.
in an
I
hour.
thought it'd be great. Yep.
And we're going to be doing it in an hour. We'll have the live split timer up there. You're going to be able to watch, and we're going
And
to...
as soon as it hits 7, the game's going to start. We're going to
Yeah.
start the game at 7
Yeah.
o'clock because
We only have an hour.
it's about an hour, so we gotta do it. But yeah,
And also, if you don't know what speedrunning is, we're actually going to be using, like, actually describing some of the speedrun terms. If you've watched a speedrunning marathon, they'll say things like, oh, that's a frame perfect, and, you know, we're manipulating RNG, and they don't explain what that is. We'll actually explain what is that. And
we
when
can tell you
come
what
to
it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so-
if you're not going to be here tomorrow, which I hope you are, but if not, you can find me on virtually anything on the internet under the name AnEternalEnigma, and I'd love to have you if I don't have you already. So.
Hi, my name is AshSaidHi, and I stream on Twitch. And you can find me uploading my VODs to YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Blue Sky, everywhere at AshSaidHi. And I love doing events like this and sharing information and helping, you know, the streamer space and helping people, you know, like do cool events like this and giving people a voice. So that's a lot of what I do, but I mostly stream retro games, Nintendo games, and indie games with a retro vibe. So I'll probably be live tomorrow after I get home from the convention playing some Amiga games. That's what I do. So yeah, thanks for being here. We had such a good time. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh, this is really fun.
I know.
Can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Sit right here. I just want to get like a little selfie with y'all. When y'all just sit there. I'm gonna do like a little angle deal. Sure, yeah. I just want something I can tag everybody in.
Yeah.
I love you, but Brian, you're never doing
You want me to take the picture for you, or?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just gonna do like the little selfie angle right here with everybody like in the background. There we go. You ready?
Yep.
Camera's right there. 3, 2, 1.
Love that.
Perfect.
Please send me that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
professional right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, post that on the internet. It'll be great.
Oh my gosh.
That was really fun.